All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today it's going to be show and tell. I want to introduce you to a couple of training methods I like to do that I don't really see too many people doing. And a lot of the time it's because there's not as much of a culture of doing these different methods in the gyms, or it's that people will just sleep on them or have some kind of, scientific reasoning why they think they're not good. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is shadow boxing with dumbbells. Now, these right here are 2-pound dumbbells. You see I added a grip on them. And the thing I like about shadow boxing with dumbbells is the weight, although it's trying to go down, right? It's not like a band where you're able to set up the resistance going behind you, because I've seen a lot of different arguments that the bands are better because it resists the opposite direction of the way you're punching. But to me, the dumbbells are the best because when you have dumbbells in your hands, you're able to actually move around and shadow box the way you normally would with the dumbbells. Now, I see a lot of people use those egg weights where they link onto your fingers and you hold them. I'm sure those are good too. I haven't tried them. But the thing I like most about the dumbbell is normally when you're shadow boxing, whether it's Muay Thai, kickboxing, or boxing, you want to keep your hands a little bit relaxed and you want to be able to clench at the end of your punch. With the shadow boxing dumbbells, you're able to hold them in such a way that your hand is like a little bit closed, but you're relaxed, right? So you're practicing relaxing with something like a 16-ounce boxing glove on or higher. And then as you punch, you're able to clench to really practice being able to stay loose and clench whenever you throw your shots. That's the hidden merit between those, especially if you're shadow boxing in front of a mirror with the dumbbells. It really trains you to have that clench at the end of the punch because, of course, you don't want to go throwing the dumbbell into the mirror. But most of all, I really just love that it builds the like shoulder muscles, the front delt, the rear delt, those muscles that, get fatigued and built up with lactic acid when you're actually holding your hands up. So a lot of people think that shadow boxing with dumbbells is only for hand speed, which it could be, there's an argument whether it does or actually doesn't build your hand speed. But for me, it's mostly just the fatigue, because there's something about when you can do rounds with these dumbbells while shadow boxing, I'm throwing these things for rounds. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. When I take these away, you realize how much easier it is. And also, when you wear 16-ounce boxing gloves, that's 1 pound. So when you hold 2-pound dumbbells, you're essentially having 2 times the weight of a 16-ounce glove. But the thing is, if you were to wear a 32-ounce glove and then go work the bag, it would just be way too clunky. It would probably create way too much fake range that you don't normally have because the gloves would be bigger and it would just put everything all out of whack. So for me, I really like shadow boxing with the dumbbells. I think it's very underrated. And also, when it comes to just the straight punches, you can implement something like a 3-pound dumbbell or even a 5 to 10-pound dumbbell. I think that there's way too much hate on the shadow boxing with dumbbells. I've seen all these arguments like, oh, scientifically, like, the direction of the force is resisting you in a different way. The bands are better. Fuck all that. When you have the dumbbells, you can move around in open space, okay? And the thing is, too, is like, most people have never experimented with the shadow boxing with dumbbells for full workouts, not just like a warm-up. I'm talking like going to an open space, a ring, a park, or the gym floor, doing like 10 rounds of shadow boxing with dumbbells. If you do this periodically, it's going to slowly build that resistance, because what you got to understand is, like, if you swing a bat in baseball, right, you put the donut on the bat, it kind of warms you up. Of course, that's not going to make you actually swing faster. It'll just make you feel like you're swinging faster. People use this argument with the dumbbell shadow boxing, but what they don't realize is when you have a load put on your body for a sustained period of time, like months or years, that's how you build the resistance to that new load, okay? So you have to do this often in order to get the benefit of it. It's not something you can just do one time and then hate on it, right? So don't knock it till you try it. Now, the second thing that I think everybody should be using who's like a striker or a martial artist, boxer, kickboxer, is working with bag gloves. Now, the thing with these bag gloves is there's different kinds. Like, there's some that are marketed as bag gloves, but they're really like a 5-ounce boxing glove. It's like they have the thumb, they have the boxing glove shape, but they're really like 5 ounces. What these are is just like a mitten. So when I put this on, the only thing that's really in between me and the bag is this layer of leather. Now, I think that a big reason there's not as much of an emphasis on these nowadays is because I think that in like amateur boxing and even point kickboxing, a lot of these fights go to a decision. So the style doesn't involve people sitting on their punches as much and really trying to like load power. But if you're, let's say, getting into like amateur kickboxing rule set in the ring, or Muay Thai, or you're even someone that's getting into like pro boxing earlier without much of an amateur record, this kind of thing is great for you, because what's going to happen is it's really going to emphasize which knuckles you're hitting with, right? Like if I have this big boxing glove on and I throw a punch, I can kind of aim with my middle knuckle and I'm not going to hurt my hand, okay? And a lot of the time, amateur boxing is almost like fencing with your hands more so than it is laying in hard shots and catching guys. Where even when I have this glove on, what happens is, because it's such a thin layer of leather, immediately when you punch the bag, you're going to feel the emphasis of which knuckles you're striking with. So that way you can get into really learning how to turn your fist over and either land with those 2 knuckles if that's your preference, or how to land with all 3 of them. Or some guys even like to try to emphasize landing with all 4, depending on which punch you're throwing, the uppercuts, you know, the hooks. So I just really love these bag gloves. And also, you know, when you put on the bag gloves, it's going to feel like a break from the boxing gloves, because you're not going to have as much weight on your hand, right? But when it comes to actually making contact with the bag, you're going to have to put more of yourself in your body weight into that bag to get the bag to move. So like if you have 60-ounce boxing gloves and you're hitting like a 100-pound heavy bag, the thing's probably going to move. You're going to get that feedback kind of easily. So you're just going to be hitting the bag in a certain amount of effort. You put on these bag gloves and go hit that same 100-pound heavy bag, all of a sudden you're going to realize you need to put more into that bag to get that feedback for the bag to move. Because of course, like naturally when you go up to the bag and you're hitting it, you don't, or pads, whatever it is, like you want a little bit of movement, right? So your body's going to instinctively make that happen. So that's the hidden merit of the bag gloves. It's that when you use the same size heavy bag or same density, whatever it may be, when you use those bag gloves, it's gonna make you, without thinking, have to punch harder. So to make that feedback happen, you're gonna make all these tweaks with your body. You're gonna set in your punches more. You're gonna drive off your feet more and use your legs, bring your body weight into it, shift your weight from left to right. So that's the hidden merits of these bag gloves. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the idea of getting very good on the jump rope. Now, like everybody knows that the jump rope is something that you can use to warm up. I don't really see a lot of people doing full workouts with the jump rope. And the reason why it's good to get very fast on the jump rope is because, like, you know, when you box or when you kickbox, whatever it is, you're not always locked in a fixed stance, loading, you know, hard shots. A lot of times you're moving around, and when you move around, you're going to be blending these wide stances with these narrow stances, because a lot of the time it's much easier to move left or right, back or forth in a narrow stance, and a lot of times it's very easy to like dart in and out and cover distance with a wide stance. So when you're doing the jump rope, you're actually getting very good at being bouncy on the balls of your feet in that narrow stance. Now, I'm not even talking about like having some Muhammad Ali type of footwork where you're doing shuffle steps and you're switching stances, but I'm talking about even just bouncing around the room, moving. It really shouldn't be this strenuous thing to move left and right, but sometimes when you're trying to maintain a stance and not be out of position while moving, that can get kind of strenuous, like when you do your ring circles, drills and stuff like that. So when you jump rope, it builds that fatigue in the calves and that springiness in your calves that teaches you how to not only get the endurance with the bouncing around, but also realize how you can become more efficient at it. And it's something that just sort of happens to you, right? It's like if you get really good on the rope, the skill will just transfer to your footwork. I see way too many people having this opinion of like, you know, you're not jump roping when you're fighting, so you should just not jump rope. And it's kind of dumb, because I used to also have that mindset of like, I only want to train things that are so-called sport specific. But then you realize how, like, if you only ever do sport specific things, you're never working on certain areas in an isolated way. And when you do jump roping, I really feel like you're isolating the concept of just being very bouncy and light on the feet, which you just don't really get with pure shadow boxing, moving around, right? Even though that is the thing you are training for, it's good to isolate and just get very good into the rhythm. Now, I said that's the last thing, but really there's one more thing, and that's this one I don't see the most. That's why you could say that out of all of them, this is the one I don't see the most, is training on the double M bag in a combative way. Now, I see people use double M bags for flow, like they get on it, right? They jab, cross, left hook, slip. But I notice a lot of people do this thing where they work the double M bag as if it's a warm-up tool. I see them being in a rhythm, but it's like they're dropping the opposite hand. They're not really locked in. And then when you see them on the mitts or the bag, they're all locked in. The thing is, you should try to use the double M bag in a combative way. And what I mean by that is do everything you would do on the double M bag while boxing, but for rounds on end. So basically make sure that, if at all possible, you have a 360 around the bag that you can move so that you can implement footwork, you can implement angles, you can implement slipping, but also stepping with your slips. You can implement, in and out footwork and basically box the bag. Don't just like work the bag, actually move around this thing and treat it like an opponent. And I really think that the double M bag, because it operates at like whatever it is, maybe like 100 beats per minute or even more. Some of them are strung to almost like 200 beats per minute. I don't think there's any tool in boxing training or martial arts training that is better at back and forth linear motion to just get your eyes used to seeing really fast shit in front of you. Because everything like we do, I said, it's always about being sport specific, but people don't realize that the eyes are something that can actually be trained. There's like studies done that show that reaction time is sort of genetic. Like there's not a way to really train it, and I could see that being true. And a lot of people always say that, to slip punches, it's more about reading punches. But I'll tell you, like, if we take out the concept of reading punches and we just think of it as the idea of if something moves in front of you, you either hit it or you move out of the way of it. The double M bag is awesome for that. And it's no surprise that I see Floyd Mayweather using the double M bag in that combative way. And he's also very good at slipping punches. I'm sure there's some kind of carryover to that, which it's actually funny. I said that no one does this method because certain really good fighters do it. I've seen Lomachenko use it. I've seen Floyd Mayweather do it, but I don't really see a lot of people use the double M bag in that way. Like I've seen Canelo and certain guys use a double M bag where Manny Pacquiao, where it's strung very tight and they're kind of putting it with combinations like pop, 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 pop. But the problem with that is I don't feel like the bag has enough range of motion to give you a real feel of timing. Like you're kind of just throwing to the center and the bag's going to be there. When you have the bag a little bit looser with more range of motion, it creates more of a it's like that golden snitch in Harry Potter. He's got to train his hands as well as his eyes. And a lot of times, if it comes all the way to your face where it's going to hit you, it may be strung too loose, like there's too much range of motion, because when you're new at the double M bag, you actually want to be able to hit it and slip it and feel it go past your head. Once you get a little better at it, you have to sort of string it tighter so that it doesn't actually reach you, but you simulate it reaching you. So if you go like jab, cross, and you slip, it's not going to actually pass over your shoulder, but that you've timed it correctly, that it would pass over your shoulder, and then you come back with your left hook. And what it does is it simulates you leading off with your jab, slipping or rolling their shot, and then coming back with a counter. So you're training the real application of leading off with a jab or a punch, whatever that may be, them firing back at you, and then you countering the counter. So you're essentially going first and third, and that's why the double M bag is so good. And you can also do combinations on it, right? It allows for you to do the uppercuts, it allows for you to do the hooks, in straight punches. So those are just my 4 tips that I wanted to share with you. 4 methods that I like doing all the time, and I just feel like most people don't really use these methods, and like all of the greats did this at one point or another, and it just sort of got lost in translation or lost in history. But as soon as I started doing these, I got massive benefits. And a lot of these, some of them I've been doing for years, like the double M bag I've been doing for years, but the other 3 I mentioned, in 15 years of doing martial arts, I really only started doing these like 2 years ago, and it's crazy how it upped my game. And a lot of times when you've been training for a long time, it's kind of harder to get better, right? Like the better you get, the more creative or hard work you have to put in to continue to get better. These things were like cheat codes. These things were like, as soon as I got good on the rope, it changed my footwork. As soon as I started shadow boxing with dumbbells, my hands got so much more fluid. It's almost like if you're not doing these things, like what are you doing? Okay, so that's the whole motto of this video. Don't knock until you try it. Go try these things out. Let me know how it goes. If you guys like this video, like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.